How do the Bleach illusions compare to Genjutsu from Naruto?
砕けろ強化水月僕の残白と強化水月有する能力は完全催眠だ
Genjutsu primarily falls under the category of yin release, which is also referred to as shadow style. The major power source of yin release is spirit energy, which is sometimes referred to as mental energies in Naruto. Spirit energy governs imagination. To further clarify, the Nara clan makes use of spirit energy to manipulate their shadows, and the opposite of the yin release is yang release, which uses raw physical energy. The Akimichi clan is known for using this to physically amp their bodies. By controlling the flow of chakra in the cranial nerves, Genjutsu works upon the 5 senses and is heavily dependent upon the intelligence of the user. Sound-based Genjutsu has been said to be the most problematic. This is because it can be used over a great distance, and once you hear it, you're essentially within the grasp of the user. Another tricky Genjutsu, which the games refer to as Genjutsu bubbles or ephemeral, involves Itachi using the sight of his finger to execute the illusion. Moving on, higher forms of Genjutsu include the Gamarinsho, the sage-enhanced Toad Song, which at one point was called the strongest Genjutsu in the data book, a powerful illusion which uses melody to bind the psyche while the user destroys the body in the external world. Within the domain of ocular Genjutsu, Obito's Sharingan could manipulate the 4th Mizukage. This was especially impressive considering the 4th Mizukage was a perfect Jinchuriki, one who could exercise full control over the tail beast. Fans theorize that Obito used a normal Sharingan, although this was never confirmed as he could have also used a Mangekyo Genjutsu before reverting to the regular Sharingan, whilst leaving Yagura in hypnosis, although other factors like Obito's Genjutsu prowess would also make this possible. And we have seen both Obito and Madara put the 9 tails on the Genjutsu with a regular Sharingan. While most Genjutsus work on the 5 senses, Itachi's Tsukuyomi, like the sage art Toad Song, and Sasuke's Sharingan Jutsu, which allowed him to project himself into Naruto's inner world, works on the mind itself. If the information from the Itachi novels is consistent with the author's intention, these Mangekyo class Genjutsus do not require the flow of chakra to exist in the target. And while the Tsukuyomi does require eye contact, it allows Itachi to project a great amount of chakra into the opponent through their eyes. Tsukuyomi, which is also called the most powerful Genjutsu, drags the opponent's mind into a realm of infinity, in which time, space, and physical matter are Itachi's to control. Furthermore, this Genjutsu is able to collapse the mind and cause death. Since this is a mental realm under Itachi's control, the speed of light and a body made of iron are irrelevant before him, although it would be a no-limits fallacy to suggest that this Genjutsu cannot be overcome by other anime verses or other verses of fiction. Even in Naruto itself, where dojutsu constructs have managed to block stronger versions of Tsukuyomi. Another ocular Genjutsu which has been called the ultimate by Itachi himself is a Koto Amatsukami. It creates phantom experiences, therefore allowing the user to control you without you realizing. Its major drawback being that it takes approximately 10 years to recharge, although the frequency of its use can be increased to once per day with the ultimate fixer-upper, Hashirama cells. The first of the sibling Genjutsus, Izanagi, blurs the border between reality and illusion. The most powerful Genjutsu anyone can cast upon themselves, which can bring them back to life in exchange for the sight in one eye. And the corrective sibling to Izanagi, the Izanami, which for the same price records instances in which you and the opponent experience the same senses, and after recording multiple snapshots create a Genjutsu loop which the opponent cannot escape until they accept their fate. Although preparing for this jutsu is time consuming and requires you to be physically fast and strong enough to contend with the opponent until the jutsu is cast. By reflecting the Rine Sharingan upon the moon, which in turn produces a powerful light, it can put the entire Earth's population under a Genjutsu. The bright light can penetrate even shadows. Infinite Tsukuyomi is a Genjutsu world into which the user drags the minds of the Earth's population, a psychic world in which they dream of their ideal selves. The user flies closer to the moon or creates a god tree which first extends closer to the moon. As Genjutsu is one of its major fighting arts, the Naruto verse does capitalize in illusions more than the Bleach verse. On the other hand, majority of the illusion-based abilities in Bleach are extremely powerful, and it's more so about quality over quantity. But let's be fair as we assess both sides. Among the Shinigami Kido spells are techniques like Noren Mekuri, which Shinji used to strip away Aizen's hidden Kido. So first of all, the idea that Shinigami are ignorant to illusions is false. By placing the hand in front of their eyes, Inemuri causes a target to lose consciousness. This is one of the variety of hypnosis techniques. Therefore, Shinigami have a variety of Kido or magical hypnotic techniques. and it is a standard for Shinigami to learn the ins and outs of Kido, including illusion or hypnosis before becoming members of the 13 Court Guard squads, lieutenants, or captains. Fans underestimate their illusionary prowess, which include countering and casting mental attacks, because they immediately jump to Aizen as proof, before understanding the insanity that is Aizen's power. Before we get to the basic and advanced forms of Kyoka Suigetsu, let's go over other illusions. Hakufuku, which much like Kabuto's Temple of Nirvana technique, sends a target to sleep. Espada number 7, Zomari's Amor, which like the Mangekyo Sharingan releasing chakra from the user's eyes, releases a mark from Zomari's eyes which take control of whatever it lands upon. Except if it touches any part of the head, he controls the person entirely. And he has 58 eyes from which he can control different targets. As not the Fear, which releases a black substance which seeps through physical barriers as well as the skin, and manipulates all insecurities, fear, and even the instinct of fear, so the opponents doubt and fear every single action and possibility. In Volstandig, his ultimate form, like an ocular genjutsu, merely glancing at him even once puts you in a state of fear, and he can project his eyes around the target so everywhere they look, they meet his gaze. Like the Tsukuyomi, this ability will kill them by ripping their minds apart, and closing your eyes after seeing him only makes the fear more intense. To overcome this ability, they had to remove every single fear, insecurity, and fearful instinct from their consciousness. Achigen's Hidden Barrier, a spirit energy based magical ability which creates a barrier which blocks itself and all its contents from people's minds. They can't even think of approaching it. It is said to be flawless, but let's ignore that for the sake of no limits fallacy, and Orihime could only locate it because her powers of rejection work in a similar manner, as Achigen can also reverse both time and space if he pleases. Tepe Wakabrada's The Love, which projects a heart upon anything with a soul, including people and Zanpakuto, which would have also worked on the mentally strong Byakuya who learned how to overcome As-Not's fear, had it not been for his oaken clothing. Shunsui's Katen Kyokotsu Shikai can produce an ability called Kageyokuri. It works through the eyes. Whenever you glimpse a shadow even once, he can make it so that every version of him you see afterwards is an illusion. Illusions which he can produce in great numbers. His Bankai, the Karamatsu Shinju, alters your perception of the entire world around you, creating the illusion of darkness, gloom, and hopelessness, as well as the illusion of cold. Captain Rojuro Otoribashi's Bankai, the Kinshara Butodan, uses music to control the heart, then forces you to believe in disastrous illusions. Then it uses your belief to warp reality, turning illusions into reality. One of its illusions can also bring death instantly, but if you bypass the sound, for example by destroying your eardrum, you can escape the Bankai's effects. Shinji Irako's Shikai, the Collapsed Sakanade, puts the opponent in an optical illusion through an aroma. It affects the eyes by reversing directions, including the direction from which you take wounds and attacks. However, a Shikai doesn't simply reverse your sight, it also reverses sound. But like Kyoka Suigetsu, its true ability is to work on all 5 senses. This is why in the novel, Shinji mentioned that he would train the Zanpakuto to reverse hot and cold. Shinji's Bankai steps beyond the senses and hypnotizes the mind. It reverses the mental concept of friend and foe. It will only activate when there are only 2 opponents, but has the power to make more than a dozen captain class characters slaughter each other. With this ability, he easily slaughtered a group of tens to hundreds of thousands of hollows, and proclaimed that he could have wiped out majority of the Quinces, including Stern Ritters, if they weren't scattered among his comrades. After all, the Bankai affects everyone in the vicinity except Shinji. Kyoka Suigetsu's Shikai ability, Kanzen Saimin, or complete hypnosis. Upon seeing the release of Aizen's Shikai, the victim will fall under hypnosis. As sight is necessary to cast the illusion, it doesn't work on blind people. It allows Aizen to control all 5 senses. He could make you perceive nothing but darkness, control your sense of touch such as the perception of muscle contractions, the feeling of endless electrocution, burning, and so on. Much like Shunsui's Kageyokuri, merely glimpsing it once makes it nearly impossible to evade. Kyoka Suigetsu also controls a 6th sense, the sense of spirit energy. While being used by someone far weaker than Aizen, even the sense of energy inside inorganic substances, on such a minute scale like the Reiatsu contained inside Reishi particles, the spiritual version of fundamental particles like atoms, even that quantum sense was under Kyoka Suigetsu's control. Most genjutsus are broken by interrupting your chakra flow, or by having others pour chakra into you. This will never work with Kyoka Suigetsu. Inflicting pain upon yourself will not free you from its illusion either. Like the Tsukuyomi, it happens in an instant, but even if you have a partner with you, they can't free you. One of the key methods to breaking genjutsu is to use a sensory ability to to sense the Genjutsu chakra and then disrupt it. Even against Danzo, who possessed multiple Sharingan eyes, to assess if they were under Genjutsu, Karin immediately resorted to energy sensing. Against Kyoka this wouldn't work unless Aizen allowed it. Bleach characters can't just do this because Aizen controls their sense of energy. Sensory type ninjas are crucial towards detecting and breaking Genjutsu, but in Bleach the characters that Aizen captivating Kyoka are pretty much sensory types. In fact, their energy senses are so spontaneous that they turn on unconsciously. As such, most fighting class Bleach characters would have the ability to sense if their energies were ever disturbed, and the vast majority of them have control over their spirit energy flow. Genjutsu itself is primarily spirit energy manipulation, which Bleach characters specialize in, whether it's sensing or manipulation. This doesn't mean that Genjutsu is useless in the Bleach verse, but suggesting that the verse wouldn't have an answer for the majority of Genjutsu is absurd, and using the principles of Kyoka does not validate Genjutsu being effective in Bleach to the same extent as Kyoka. To overcome Kyoka you must touch the blade before complete hypnosis is activated and not after. And as shown in Kan for Your Own World, the moment you let go of the blade, he is free to put you in hypnosis. And as shown with Tokinada's version of Kyoka and hinted by Aizen's own words, you might be able to overcome the hypnosis if you vastly surpass Aizen in spiritual power. After Aizen transcended Hollows and Soul Reapers by so much that they could not sense or interfere with him unless he allowed it, Kyoka would evolve likewise, and you can only imagine the strength that it now possesses. It was also hinted that the Zanpakuto fused with his being and became one with him. Furthermore, while he was heavily sealed, his presence alone throws off your perception of time. Yhwach's Almighty could perceive and understand the events of the distant future. Then he absorbed Mimihagi, which also had the power to see the future, taking that power for himself. Then he absorbed the sealed Soul King. He could look down on multiple futures, glancing into the far distance of each future, as if they were grains of sand representing all possibilities, all timelines. The Almighty immediately discerning and comprehending everything he sees, except the Kyoka hypnosis, which was able to manipulate his perception of these separate timelines. Even in further states, Quincy's can sense the spiritual particles that make up matter. The Reishi, which I've mentioned before, they can even sense their vibrations. Yuha was a god Quincy among other things, so imagine the level of sensory ability that Aizen can manipulate with Kyoka along with the power to manipulate space-times in the future. While the Naruto verse visibly shows more illusions, both verses excel in the use and undoing of illusions, and whether through sensory or mental attacks, they both possess extreme versions of illusions. And while we're on the subject of illusionist, Koga Kuchiki and the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc was featured in the Thousand Year Blood War in Byakuya's memories. Furthermore, Muramasa was referenced in the Kan for Your Own World novel. If you ever want a video on them, just let me know. They are both very powerful telepaths and illusionists. Cheers.